Hi everyone. Welcome to Dual Diagnosis, Engagement, and Motivation. My name is Catherine Mullins. I have been employed with PeerStar for about the past year and a half. I got my MBA from Walden University, my bachelor's in behavioral sciences from the Mount, and I have my associate's degree in deaf studies from the Mount as well. I've been working in the field for the past 15 years in all types of capacities, but mainly focused on intellectual disabilities. Let's talk about our learning objectives. First, we're going to be able to identify what motivation and engagement mean. We're going to be identifying what the difference is between motivation and engagement. We're going to be able to understand the lack of both in peer support services. We're also going to be talking about trust and autonomy. We're going to be able to apply tips and strategies to peer support services. And we're going to be able to use self-reflection exercises to help motivation and engagement in ourselves. Let's talk about motivation and engagement. Motivation is the internal experiences that can be categorized into needs, cognitions, and emotions that are influenced by antecedent conditions like environmental events and social contexts. Engagement is the voluntary commitment to do something at a given time. So motivation is very much an internal drive, while engagement is the voluntary commitment to do what is motivating you. So when we discuss peer support, motivation and engagement are extremely important. We want to make sure that our sessions are engaging, and we want to make sure that we are hitting on not only our motivation, but the motivation of our peers. And that's kind of what we're going to be exploring today. Lack of motivation and engagement. This is actually one of the biggest issues that we see in peer support right now is there's a lack of motivation or engagement in services. And that's for a lot of different reasons. And there's a lot of different ways that somebody could be lacking this motivation and engagement. So we're going to be discussing a couple types of lack of motivation and engagement, and then we're going to talk about tips and strategies and where we're actually going to be talking about the solutions. So first we're going to be talking about the problems. There's not going to be a whole lot of solutions on those slides, but be patient. We will be getting to those tips and strategies. So the first lack of motivation or engagement that we see is called dissatisfaction, and it's super simple definition. It is a lack of satisfaction. So it basically means that somebody is not happy with something. And when we talk about peer support, that would mean that they're not happy with something with their services. There's a dissatisfaction to their services. It is, however, kind of a hard thing to remedy. Now, in order to remedy dissatisfaction, we first have to kind of figure out why that person's not happy with the services. So we have to find that background. What is making them not happy about the services, and can we fix it? So once we do figure out the why, we try to sit down with that peer and we try to figure out, well, okay, you're not happy with this part of your services. How do we help you? So an example of dissatisfaction could be that maybe the peer is not happy with their schedule. Maybe they wanted afternoons and you're only able to do mornings. So that would create a dissatisfaction within their services. So once we figured out, hey, this is why this person is maybe not engaged or motivated to work on things when we do show up, now we can sit down and say, how do we either compromise so that you are happier, or how do we fix it so that, maybe they need a different time and day that you could do as well as they could do. So sitting down and talking with them and really trying to figure out the why and how do we fix it would really help. The next lack of motivation and engagement that we see is self-confidence or self-esteem. And actually, it is one of our goals that we work on with some of our peers. So this actually makes sense. When somebody's not doing well with their mental health, sometimes they have that lack of self-confidence or self-esteem. So it plays a really big role in this lack of motivation and engagement. So we are actually meeting peers when they're struggling. So we need to remember that sometimes that affects their self-confidence and self-esteem. It is important to be able to identify if the reason for the lack of motivation and engagement is self-esteem, because like I said, we can add that into their plan as a goal that we can work on. And if you ever have any questions, like I'm not real sure on how to help somebody with self-esteem and self-confidence, we are going to be going over that in some of the tips, but also you can reach out to me at any time and I can help you. There's some worksheets, there are some workbooks that are incredible that actually teach someone how to build their self-confidence and self-esteem daily. So the next one is something that I'm extremely guilty of. It's self-talk. Self-talk can be negative and positive. When we see a lack of motivation or engagement, usually that self-talk is pretty negative. And like I said, I'm very guilty of this. I have some negative self-talk of my own, and I think that we all kind of struggle with this at times. But negative self-talk can be extremely damaging to those who are trying to work on goals. So, they might be working on goals, but in their self-talk, they're telling themselves they can't do it, or they're not good enough, or they're never going to achieve that goal. So we really want to identify that negative self-talk, and that's that first step of helping that peer. So knowing is always key. On the strategies and tip pages, we're going to be talking about reframing of thinking, and that's going to help some of this negative self-talk. Another problem that we see with another lack of motivation and engagement is procrastination. There are people that do wait until the last minute to do things. And sometimes that's chaos or disaster time, right? It's do it or don't do it. These people are procrastinators. That happens. This can cause a lack of motivation or engagement until the goal is absolutely necessary. So here's an example. Maybe you have a peer that needs to move out. They have an eviction notice. They have 30 days. They need to move out of their apartment and they need to find another one. They might be a procrastinator and they might say, well, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'll get to it. And then guess what? Day 29, they have one more day, and that's when they start to scramble. And they're like, I need somewhere to live tomorrow, and I'm not sure what to do. So knowing your peers is really key with this one. Knowing if they are procrastinators or not, so that you can kind of help fill in that support. Hey, I know you wait till the last minute, but maybe we should start on this a little earlier. So it can be a little frustrating when you're working with somebody that is a procrastinator, but we're going to go over more tips and strategies in the next couple slides. The next slide we're going to be going over is self-deprivation or contentment. Self-deprivation is our way of sabotaging ourselves. Why? We as humans do not trust our own fulfillment, so because we've had bad experiences, we tend to self-sabotage ourselves. We are also scared of change, and sometimes we can't envision that change, so we'll sabotage our own progress in order to say, see, I wasn't able to do it anyways, or, I wasn't ready for the change. So we do see self-deprivation as a problem. Contentment is another whole other issue. So we're content where we are. The phrase, devil you know, but it is a false contentment. We're saying, you know what, I don't really need to change. I'm okay where I'm at. I've been getting by thus far. I don't need any help. But that is us tricking ourselves, right? So we're saying we don't really need to lose weight. My clothes still fit, so it's okay. And something that I hear a lot. And then I'm saying, well, maybe you'd be happier if you lost weight, or maybe you would feel better, or maybe you could do things that you had never done before. So that contentment we do see a lot. And again, we're meeting peers where they are. So if your peer is struggling, they might be struggling with either self-deprivation or contentment. So we really want to be mindful of that. This is the last slide we're going to be going over for lack of motivation and engagement. And what we're going to be talking about today is stress. So stress has negative effects on your motivation and engagement with goals. When I get stressed or again overwhelmed, I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is just me. So think about the peers that we're meeting, we don't know how they react to stress or how much stress they are under. So if there is a low amount of stress, what we could see is maybe the reappraisal of the situation. How do we give that peer different ways to look at that stress and to evaluate it? If there's high stress, what we should be doing is trying to figure out how do we distract from that stress with that peer. Overall, we should be evaluating, the stress levels of the peer and the goal. And then we should be asking ourselves a few questions. Are we creating more stress for the peer? If we are, how do we avoid that? What is causing the stress for the peer? Are there ways for the peer to de-stress, and can we help with that?